Hello, my name is Diane, and today I want to talk about Lights by Brenna Thummler. Lights is the third and final installment in the Sheets trilogy. It comes out next week on September 5th. Since this is the final installment in a series, I want to talk about each of the books a little bit, and I'm also going to be careful not to spoil anything. Sheets is a middle grade graphic novel series with 3 installments. Each one primarily focuses around each of our main characters, although all of the characters definitely have a role in each book. They feature younger teenagers, about 13 and 14 throughout, and one of our characters is also the ghost of a slightly younger boy. We do cover some bigger themes and topics in this. There is a lot of friendship, of course, but also grief and loss and loneliness and bullying and things like that. But I think it's done because it's written for younger readers. I think it's done in a very appropriate and approachable way that kids of that age could definitely read this. It's targeted for them, but it's also still very enjoyable read. I'm much older than that, and I really loved seeing these characters go through these things and learn things about each other and about themselves. So the first book, Sheets, mostly focuses on Marjorie. She has recently lost her mother. Her father is not coping well at all. He's kind of shut down, and she has a much younger brother who doesn't fully grasp what's going on, but obviously knows that his mother is gone. Her family depends on their laundry business to make ends meet, and with her father not really dealing with things well, not quite functioning as the adult, she ends up taking up the reins and keeping that business going, basically taking care of her family while also trying to process what she's going through. And then we also meet Wendell, who is the ghost of a recently deceased boy. He is learning how to be a ghost, basically. He goes through his little ghost tutorial, how to be a ghost, and then he goes and explores this new version of the world that he's in and finds himself at Marjorie's family's laundry business. He unintentionally causes a lot of problems for her. She has a very delicately balanced life. She's very stressed at this point, and he accidentally causes more problems for her. They wind up meeting, realizing that Wendell is a ghost and that he is not helping Marjorie's situation. They end up becoming friends and getting to know one another. I think it's a really interesting meeting where they're both on the opposite sides of grieving. Marjorie is grieving someone she's lost, and Wendell is adjusting to the loss of himself, basically. And it was really fun and sweet to see them come together and try and help each other's situations. Marjorie's trying to help Wendell figure out his new place in the world, and Wendell is trying to help Marjorie keep things going and get through what she's dealing with. In the second book, Delicate, we meet a new character, Eliza. She is very interested in ghosts. That is her favorite thing to think about and talk about. And she finds herself kind of isolated because of this. No one else is really that into ghosts. No one else can really relate to her in that way. And she has a difficult time making friends because of that. Marjorie and Wendell meet Eliza. Of course, Eliza is delighted to meet a real ghost. They end up bonding. At this point, Marjorie's dad has processed things where he's now stepping up as the parent again and wants to encourage Marjorie to get back to being a kid and being a teenager and hanging out with friends and doing normal things. So she's kind of adjusting to trying to live a normal life while she's still not quite sure what she wants or needs at this point. So she's trying to make other friends, hang out with other people, and not just Wendell, who nobody, of course, knows about. Wendell, on the other hand, is kind of feeling lonely because of this, because he doesn't have any other friends. And Eliza is feeling very lonely because she hasn't really bonded with anyone, because she pretty much just has the one interest, and none of her peers are really that interested in it. So we have all different types of loneliness happening with our characters, and they all have to deal with this, figure out ways to ask for and provide help to one another. I think this book was so heartbreaking to see what all of these characters are going through, but also very sweet to see how people step up for them once they realize how difficult of a time they're each having. And then in the third book, Lights, we finally get a little bit more about Wendell's story. We learn about his life when he was alive. He's begun to get very curious about the specifics surrounding his death. He has an idea of how he died, but he's not really sure as to why that happened. So they do a bit of ghost investigating. We do some classic ghost hunting. Some characters from previous books come back, and while we uncover Wendell's past, and he's worried that he has been forgotten about by the people who knew him when he was alive because he's beginning to forget things about his life. He doesn't have that many memories. They're very sparse and they come very sporadically. So he's worried that on the other side of that, he's also been forgotten about. So they do some digging. We finally figure out what actually happened to Wendell and what's going to happen to Wendell. Meanwhile, Marjorie is learning that people can change, people can grow. Some characters from previous books come back and they have learned some things on their own time and are different people and want to make amends for the things that they've done. So our characters learn about people changing for the better. Eliza is also learning to take interest in the people she cares about interests, even if they're not things that she's actually interested in. Learning to care about things for the people that you care about, rather than just caring about her own interests. So overall, there are a lot of conversations about friendship, being there for people, people changing, caring about other people's interests and not just your own. We also go through grief and bullying and loneliness and some sadder feelings. And in the end, this was a very bittersweet ending to a series that I really loved reading. I think these conversations are very beautifully depicted in the series. We go through a lot with some young characters. I think these are very charming characters. It was a very interesting story to go through, get to know each of our characters as they get to know each other and also themselves. Some very heartbreaking moments, but ultimately a very heartwarming tale. I also really like the art style in this. It's fairly minimal, but it's always very clear who's who and what's happening on page. I know with any graphic novel, the art style is not going to suit everybody. I really like a variety of art styles, and I think this one really captured what was happening as it was happening. It was very easy for me to follow without having too much in each panel. So that's all for me. Really loved the series. Definitely recommend checking it out. Let me know if you've read this series or if you're planning to pick it up. Thanks for hanging out with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.